Hi everybody, this is Alan Underwood with codingblocks.net, and I wanted to do a series of videos on just some SQL Server tips to help developers become more effective and efficient in what they're doing in their daily database work. So the first thing that I'm going to do here, the tip is, don't actually install SQL Server like we used to for years and years. I highly recommend going the Docker route. So if you don't have Docker already, go to docker.com. Go to products, go to desktop, and then download it. I already have it on mine, so I'm not going to go through this process right now, but this should work on Mac, on Windows, on Linux, basically anywhere. So do that. Once you get it installed and running, it may ask you if you're on Windows 10 Professional, if you want this thing to run in conjunction with Hyper-V, say yes to that because it's actually what's creating the VM behind the scenes. But after everything's set up, you should have Docker and it's running down here. Typically, just so you know, this thing is hidden up in here. I like to bring that out here so that I know that Docker's running and there's no problems, because you'll see like a red whale if there's an issue. So, I recommend dragging that thing out there. Now, the first thing you want to do after this thing's installed is make sure you are running in Linux containers. So if you see this saying switch to Windows containers, then you know you're currently running in Linux mode. I highly recommend that. That's a good way to do this. Another thing you're going to want to do, let's go ahead and go into settings, is general's fine. I don't like to send usage statistics on any software, but whatever, up to you. What you're going to want to do though is go into your shared drives. Now, choose whatever is going to be where you're likely to keep data, and you're probably going to want to check one. So if you plan on having folders on your C drive, then put it in there. I might want to share my E drive or something like that. If you don't do this, then you won't be able to persist your attached storage for your Docker containers. So do that, and then we'll show you why here in a little bit. So other than that, hit apply, and then you should be good to go. So now the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find SQL Server Docker container. All right. We're going to run, if I can find this, so hub.docker.com, we're going to run the Linux version of this. All right. And the reason we're going to use Linux is so that it will run on Windows, Mac, or anywhere else that you can run these containers. All right. So the big thing that we're going to do here is, if you look at this, this is how you can run this thing. What I'm going to do is find the tags that they have. So check this out. The latest that they have that is stable is 2017 latest Ubuntu. That's called a tag. So this is the command that you would do to grab that. So I'm going to get that. I don't want the latest, Edge release right now, because we want to make sure this thing works. So another tip I'll give you, if you don't have it, go get Commander. It's amazing. It's basically a shell for Windows that wraps a lot of other shells, and it makes life a whole lot easier. So if you're on Windows, get Commander. I highly recommend it. It's sort of a wrapper for Conemu, which is one that I liked in the past. If you're on Mac, I like iTerm too. So if you're on Mac OS and you want a better terminal than the one that's built in, then I highly recommend that. So, again, those are some additional things. I am using Commander because I am on Windows. What we're going to do now, though, is that command that we copied from Docker, from the Docker Hub, we're going to run this. And I may already have this on my system. Nope, I don't. So that's excellent. I have the latest, but I'm telling it to get this particular version, so it's going to download it, and this might actually take a minute. So we'll let that thing go. Okay, so now you can see here, it shows that it's downloaded, right? And just so you'll know what it is, you can see here, that's the tag that I got, and this is the size of the image. So another kind of important thing to know here is the requirements to run SQL Server in the Linux image or the container is actually quite a bit less than the requirements to run the Microsoft Windows version of it. You could switch to Windows containers and do this, but it actually requires more space, more RAM, more CPU, all that. So we're going to stick with this, at least for the demo. If you want to go the other route, feel free to do so. So now we've got all that. Now what we want to do is we actually want to run this thing, right? So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here and it tells you how to use this image. All right. And this is really nice because this will get you up and running pretty quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to take, so unfortunately they haven't updated the document stuff perfectly here, but let's just run through this. So I'm going to grab this entire thing, although we're going to basically change some of this here in a second. So let's talk about this. So Docker run, that's basically going to start up an instance of this image up here. And these images, when you start an instance of it, is called a container. So we're going to take this, we're going to run it. And here -E means, hey, set this environment variable. So in Microsoft products, you probably had to accept the end user license agreement a few hundred times in your life. So that's what this is doing. -E, we're setting another environment variable for your SA password. That's your sysadmin password. Here, I'm just going to change it to coding blocks. And that's good. Now, in SQL Server, if you're not familiar with this, in SQL Server, the default port for communication is 1433. So we're just going to leave that the same. Actually, what I want to do is just to demonstrate, we're going to make this 1533 on the outside. So this is basically saying map 1433 inside the container to 1533 on my host. And we'll see why that matters in a second. -D, what this is right here is it basically says run it in the background. It's running it in disconnected mode. And that's important because if you don't do that, as a matter of fact, what we'll do is we'll do this the first time without that. And then that way you can actually see what's going on here. So instead of -D, we're going to do interactive with a terminal. And then we're going to come back up here and we're going to grab this tag that it had, because that's what we just downloaded, not this CU8 that they have at the end here. So I'm going to tell it I want to run an instance of this. So check this out. We're going to hit enter. And did I miss something? And the license terms specify. Except EULA. It looks like it didn't look like it took it. Oh, you know what? I think I remember seeing this in the past. For whatever reason in Windows, if you have quotes around it, it doesn't accept the environment variables. I'm guessing this works in Linux because that's how they have it set up there. So it's probably a good thing this happened. Otherwise, you'd spend way more time than you'd like trying to figure that out. So take the quotes off that, and now you can see the thing start up. Okay, so this kind of messed up for me because I have it run in interactive. Let's just turn that off and run it again. Okay, so it exited. See previous errors. Oh, hold on, unable to set password validation failed. That's awesome. Okay, so it always helps, and this is why I didn't want to run it in disconnected mode first, because when you run it like this, you'll actually find out what's going on. And there's a few other things that I'll point out here. So you'll notice I have 3 containers now that said that they all ran. It's the same thing, and these things are just hanging around. I want those gone. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a Docker RM, which is remove. And I'm going to do all 3 of them at the same time. So 853, you can just do a few characters of the container ID, and that's enough for it to go and find it. So you can see here, I'm telling it, hey, I want to delete the container for 853, 713, and AAD. So if I do that, and if I do a Docker PS-A again, that says show me everything that I have, all the containers that are hanging around, and I have none right now. So I push up a few times. I'm back here. What I'm going to do this time is I'm also going to put in a -rm. So Docker run -rm. And what that basically says is, hey, when this container's done, if it fails for some reason, just remove it. So if I run this, it should fail again. Oops. Docker run. Didn't like it. Docker run. Is it -rm? Might be. -rm. So this is going to fail again because I didn't make a strong enough password. So that's fine. But if I do a Docker ps-a again, it's gone this time. So it cleaned it up for me. Basically, it says, hey, when the container's done, get rid of it. Don't hang on to it. So that'll help us out here. Now, we know that it did not like that I don't have enough special characters or whatever. So I'm going to change the first O to a 0, and I'll put an exclamation at the end. And hopefully this does the job right here. And we should see that this thing will be up and running, and that looks a lot better, right? Like it's hanging around. Now, here's the important part. Because I did not do a -d, this thing is sort of attached to my terminal right now. So I can't do anything here. If I do Control-C to stop it, it will shut down the container. That can be convenient. It's not always what you want, but just to show, SQL Server. So let's open this. And what you'll see here is I can connect to this. I should have a database that's running. And so just so you know, when you go to connect to these things, a dot in Enterprise Management Studio, a lot of people don't know this, that means localhost. Now, we set the port to 1533. We said that, hey, we want to map the internal port of 1433 to our host, our computer's 1533. So we have to put a comma after the dot, or you could do localhost here if you wanted. I try to do less characters. And then here we said that the password was C0, Dean blocks, and then an exclamation at the end, right? So I'm going to hit remember password and do connect. And we should see here, we have a database, right? And the cool part is you should actually see what if I do anything inside Management Studio here, we should see that it will go, it might even log something. So let's create a new database. I'm going to say this testing database. Hit enter, and it created it. And look here. So look at this, testing database. So the cool part here is when you run it in interactive mode, not using the -d, you kind of get to see everything that's happening. Now, the problem with that can be is if there is a lot of stuff happening, then your computer's having to spit out that information to the screen at the same time that it's logging in, at the same time it's actually trying to do the work. So what we're going to do now, and just so that we can go back and show this, is I'm going to Control-C this right now. And then that should break out of it. And if I do a Docker ps-a again, actually it's still up. That's really odd. It should have died. Oh, I think it's because I didn't run it in -it mode. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kill this Docker rm-f, and I'm going to do ca3 for this container ID up here again. And then that's going to kill it. And now, if I try and refresh this, it should die. It's basically going to say, hey, I couldn't connect to the server, right? And that's what we expect. So, just for kicks, let's go back and run this thing. I don't have it in -d, but I'm going to do in -it mode here. And then this will create it again. And ironically, it might actually make this work. This is locked up right now, trying to connect something that doesn't exist. But this is running right now. You gotta love it when you upset Management Studio. Here, we're just gonna force close it because this is the right way to do things, right? So let's go ahead and kill that. Somebody at Microsoft is cringing right now. All right, so I force killed it. We're gonna open it up again, SQL Management Studio, and we should see again that we can connect to it. I saved that information. It's connected. The database is gone, by the way, because the way that I've got this set up right now, I haven't attached any storage. Now watch this. Now if I do a Control C because I had it in -IT mode, it's gone. Okay, so the important piece of this command here is I told it to run it in interactive mode. All right, and when I didn't put this in there initially, after I disconnected from the stream output, it let it go ahead and run in the background. What we're going to do now though is I'm going to take it out of interactive mode and I'm just going to run it with a -D. All right. And basically here's the cool part is it's starting up right now, but we're not going to get any of this output. That's both good and bad, right? Like I said, it's great for while you're actually trying to develop, but it might be bad if you need to see what's going on. So did this thing start up? Well, here's something that's sort of misleading is it says it's up. Right? It says it was up. It's been up for 20 seconds. It was created. Everything's sort of good here. But if I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the logs of this container. So all the stuff that we saw up here before, because we were running in interactive mode, it was spitting the logs out to us. You can do the same thing without actually being attached to it by looking at the logs. So let's, and I probably should have named this thing. So actually, let's do this. We're going to docker rm-f this one too, and I'll show you why here in a second. So what I want to do is I want to run this thing very similar to what I did before, except I want to name this container because I don't want it creating some sort of weird name that I got to go type a bunch. So up here it did cocky chatelet. So yeah, I'm not going to remember that. So I'm going to do a -- name. I'm going to call this SQL dev. All right, that's easier for me to remember. So now if I do a docker ps-a, I'll see that it named my container SQL dev, right? So now I'm going to say docker logs, and I'm going to tail the last 100 lines of the log, and then I'm going to tell it to keep following the log so I can watch it. And I'm going to tell it, hey, I want to see the logs for SQL dev. So check it out. I've got something very similar to what I did previously to where now I'm getting to see these logs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come over here and refresh this, and I'm going to create another database, and we're going to call this test database again, right? And if we come back over here, check it out. I'm tailing the log, so I still get to see that. So you don't lose that functionality. So don't worry about the fact that, hey, if I run this in -D, I'm not going to be able to see what's happening. You totally can. You can come back in here and you can run that command to tail the logs, right? To follow the logs. So we've lost nothing there. Now, this isn't super useful for you yet because, you know, you're probably going to want to look at some data, and we're going to go into that into a video in the future where I'm going to show you how to get some data, some existing data that you can play with so you can learn some decent querying technology or functionality. But I do want to leave you with one other tip. So the big tip is get SQL Server running in Docker so that you don't really have to go through the whole thing. Now, the other thing that you are going to want to do, though, is you're going to want to download SQL Server Management Studio, right? And man, Microsoft has gotten awesome over the years because now it's free, right? You can actually come down here and download SSMS, and it's free. So go get this. I'll have a link in the show notes for it, or you can just Google it like I just did. But either way, you can come up here, get this installed, and that is what this is, right? This is SQL Server Management Studio. So check this out. The next tip that I want to show you, and this is something that a lot of people don't know exists, and it is truly helpful. So right now, we said that this is going to be our development database, right? So one of the things that can mess you up is this. Let's just come in here. Did I create the database? I did. Okay, so check this out. I did Control-N to open up a new query window. And let's say that I want to, I don't know, create table DBO, you know, super important table. And in here, I'm going to give it like an, I don't know. Actually, let's call it users so it's not so terrible. Let's do first name, varchar 100 not null, last name varchar 200 not null, because some people have some last names that are crazy, right? So let's create this table. All right. Let's say that, you had a bunch of data in this table, right? If you were in something like production, I mean, this is obviously just a made up example, but if you said delete from users where last name equal Underwood, right? This might be something that in dev you're fine with, right? In production, you might be like, whoa, wait a second, that's not a really good idea. But there's no real easy way here to identify that you're actually in a development environment, right? Other than throw away this fact that I have test database down here. But looking down here, if you're a developer, it's like 1533, was that production? Was that stage? Was that dev? I don't know what it was, right? So what I want to show you is kind of cool. So if you go to database engine and here, so 1533, we know this is our development database, right? We're going to go to options and check this out. You can tell it to use a custom color. So what I can say here is, hey, this is development. Now I do recommend choosing one of the lighter colors because if you choose a dark color, then it's hard to read the text, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. So development, I don't care what you do there, right? So maybe let's go even a little bit lighter than that just so that it'll be easier to see. I'm going to choose that. Now watch this. So this will actually save it for me. So I'm going to hit connect. Actually, let's disconnect here and let's reconnect to it and hit connect. And I'm going to open up a new query window. Now check this out. The green at the bottom is a visual indicator that, oh, hey, you can kind of do whatever you want right here, right? It's not going to hurt you. But just for kicks, let me show you something else. So this Docker run command that we had earlier, right? This is another reason I love Docker is I have one database server running right now, more or less, right? Let's say that I want to create another one. I'm going to call this SQL QA. And here I'm going to keep the same password, but here I'm going to make this 1555 or yeah, there we go. 1555. I'm going to start up another one. So check this out. What I have behind the scenes now is I actually have two servers running. I have the SQL Dev one that I started initially, and it's mapped to port 1533 on my local system. And now I have a SQL QA database server that's mapped to port 1555. So okay, let's prove this thing out, right? So let's do this. Let's go to a database engine. So here, I'm going to say 55. We know the password was coding blocks. I'm going to remember it, but this is staging, right? This is probably a little bit more important to me. Now, again, if you're doing this in the real world, chances are you're connecting to a real SQL server, some real staging data in it. But, follow me here. You kind of get what I'm going after. So I'm going to make that a little bit lighter. I'm making this one yellow because in staging, it's okay if you do some stuff maybe, but chances are you want to keep it as clean as possible. So check this out. There's no databases because none existed, but look at that. Now I have something down here that indicates that, hey, wait a second, I'm in an area where I should be a little bit more careful, right? If I go back over to my other tab, I can see it's green. So now without having to look at the connection that I'm actually on, I can visually see, hey, I'm in a safe place. No, I'm not. Now check this out. That's all cool, right? But does this help me out later? So check this out. I'm going to open up SQL Management Studio again, and it actually saves it with the connection information. So that's the most important part. You don't have to do this every time. So this is our staging one that we just looked at. If we go look at options, check it out. It's still there. So I don't have to do anything special in order to come back in here and get going and see that I have these colored connections down here. So in the past, this used to be something that you only got if you had something like Redgate tools or something like that. And that's fine and dandy, but not everybody has $1,000 to spend on that. So here you go. This is tip number one. Well, I guess tips 1 and 2 that hopefully you'll find useful here. And this will set us up for doing some cool stuff here in the near future. So if you like this, please do leave us a thumbs up on the video. If you love it, subscribe. We're going to be doing a whole series of videos on like helpful SQL Server tips and tricks. And it's going to range everything from tools to querying tables to different types of set operations. So There's a whole lot of things coming. So if you are interested, definitely check it out. And also, if you like this content, you should go check out our podcast, because while you're sitting in traffic or you're doing your dishes or something, you can be learning about, good practices, better ways to develop things, to learn for your development experience. So hopefully you enjoyed and you got something out of this. And again, please do leave a comment below. We love hearing from you. So I will be back soon. Thanks. Bye.